Hey, hi everyone. Good evening. We'll give a couple of more minutes as people are joining, and then we'll start. Hey, hi everyone. Good evening once again. I see a few new members in the session today for day two, and I think I see the profile name as Villains Gaming. Not sure if which is the right name, and feel free to unmute yourself and maybe if you can just introduce yourself and share like what is your expectation around the session and your any prior experience in terms of programming language or SQL or anything else.
Hello, sir. Good evening. I am Pawan Reddy from
Hey,
Hyderabad.
hey, hi Pawan.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, hi Pawan. Please go ahead.
It's pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you, Pawan.
Thank
But
you.
today you're joining today, or did
Yes,
you join yesterday as well?
yesterday also, sir. I
Okay,
joined
nice.
yesterday class also.
Okay, pardon me. Maybe I did not see the name. Sorry for that.
Uh, Actually, I'm 30 minutes late for the session yesterday. I
Okay.
forgot it.
Okay, no worries. And maybe if you can share more details, Pawan, regarding your expectation from the course, and not sure if you have gone through the curriculum details, and in case you have any questions, clarifications also, feel free to pitch it up. We'll try to clarify that.
I studied, I completed just a degree completed, sir. I am
Mm,
trying to complete MBA.
mm,
Uh,
got it.
okay, and I'm preparing this Oracle
Got it.
course.
Got it. Nice.
Complete.
Nice. Cool. Cool. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Pawan.
Thank you.
And anyone else today who are joining the session for the first time who missed the day one session? Anyone in the participants today? Okay. Okay, I don't see any reply or raise their hand. And again, during the session, in case you have any questions, clarifications, doubts, or anything you want to uh, clarify, any confusion in mind, feel free to raise your hand. Feel free to use the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and raise the question. So we want to keep this session open and make sure your questions and doubts whatsoever are addressed, and you feel confident to take the session forward from there on. Okay. Okay, I think a couple of minutes pass, so people are joining. So, but meantime, we will start with the session for today, and let give a few more minutes for others to join as well. Okay, and welcome to the day two demo session of Oracle SQL and PLSQL, and members who missed yesterday, maybe joined little late or missed yesterday. Today is your first session. I'll just try to give a small recap of what we are going to cover in terms of the content and in terms of what we are going to do in this demo sessions, and the next plan going forward after that. And this is batch 342 with Oracle SQL and PL SQL, and myself, Venkata. I have about 16 years of experience, overall IT experience, and which includes some of the what you call corporate training experience and the other training experience as well. I'm kind of extending my passion towards teaching or sharing my knowledge or experience to others, kind of taking these sessions part of it as well. And okay, and this session for Oracle SQL PL SQL, which started yesterday, which is from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. IST, the Indian hours. And this is a 30-day course. After the demo sessions, we'll have the sessions where with a separate Zoom link, which would be shared with the registered participants. And we are going to discuss the schedule. We're going to discuss the use case, and we're going to discuss about the uh, access details of the database, how to connect, and all those eventually in terms of practice, hands-on, everything. We would discuss it part of the actual session onwards with it. And the first 3 days would be more of introduction session, and we'll basically cover what we are going to discuss in all the next 30 day onwards. Okay. And in case part of the course you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the support team provided the numbers on screen. You can reach out to them over the email as well. And all the recordings, the first demo sessions will be available for public access, and for the actual session with the registered participants, they can access these videos and the daily notes or content or assignments whatsoever over the LMS portal, which you will have the access once you registered for the course. Okay, and we have the WhatsApp link, which is already shared. Uh, I'm sharing this over the chat window once again today, and feel free to join that. And any communication regarding the courses or any other course, not just on the Oracle, any communication from the support team, they'll keep via contact via WhatsApp just to keep the information passing on quickly, and they do send out or reach out to you as well as need on basis. Okay, and in case you haven't seen the website details, you can log into the logiclabstech.com, and you can navigate to the upcoming batches. You can see all the list of upcoming batches which we are having at the moment, and regarding the WhatsApp community link which I mentioned, this is available over this website for upcoming courses for batch 342, and all the registration details, the payment link, everything are available uh, uh, over this portal as well. Okay. And the course content, in case you haven't seen that, you can see the course consent once again regarding all the topics what we are going to cover in the next 30 days with the hands-on activities. Okay. And yeah, I've shared these links. Feel free to spend a minute and feel free to get enough confidence. And in case you feel any topic you want to cover it based on your need, and if it's possible, we'll try to cover that in these 30 days and make sure all your doubts are clarified. Again, if it's going to be a big, huge topic, probably we can have a separate session for it, but I'll try to address your question as much as possible in this 30 days along with the planned content. Okay. And I'll pause in a second here. Again, feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, make sure your doubt, confusion whatsoever are clarified. Instead of having some assumptions and anything, make sure it gets clarified for you. Okay. Any questions, any doubts regarding the links what we shared, regarding the content what we have shared, and any questions, doubts, clarifications? Okay. So we're going to cover the introduction for the first 3 days, and then building up these objects, creating these tables, different database objects, accessing those along with some meta information available over the Oracle, and then with the SQL queries, building the SQL queries with a normal query, and then with little complex query with these aggregate functions, group by functions, everything, and converting them onto the views, and little bit of these concepts while converting the non-view. We'll cover it, the security concept, why each of these topics have evolved in terms of databases, and we're to cover how these topics are going to help us in our real-time or day-to-day activities as a developer as well. And then we'll discuss some of the details about the PLSQL components and the PLSQL data types. We have different data types, one on the SQL engine or the SQL data types, and the second we have it on the PLSQL data types as well. Okay. Part of that, we would discuss both anonymous PLSQLs and named PLSQLs, both procedures, functions, and package. And we're going to see how to invoke all those things with different variations in our content. Okay. And at the end, we would cover some of the architecture details and some of the DBA concepts as well, which are essential as a developer you go through. Okay. So at a high level, these are the curriculum and topics what we're going to cover in the next 30 days, and once the actual session starts. And the first three, the introduction sessions for it. And so in day one, we predominantly covered on the databases. What exactly is database? What is the need of database? Why database is needed? And what type of what is that it's going to solve us, right? Compared with the physical information or physical stored information in form of files, books, etc., converted into digital format and kind of mimic what we typically do with this physical data and on the digital format as well. And few additional possibilities eventually have emerged as we explored into the different world altogether. Okay. And we discussed about these databases, and we discussed about the improvement or essentials of this database, why we need the digital database, and both in terms of an single application, it can be a multi-application, it can be geo-region based applications as well. Eventually, we need something central available so that we can get the leadership or the business teams get clear understanding of what is happening around the business in all different directions of it, right? So eventually it's possible only when you have the information stored at one place, right? So we have concepts with distributed, we have concept with multi-node, we have different network layers again top of it. But eventually the intention of all the databases, be it single central database or be it heterogeneous database, but connected to each other with some of the other integrations or connected application architecture, right? So the whole essence is to drive some of these data elements and derive the usable metrics to the business, right? So it's always essential that the metrics, whatever we derive, the information what we collect, is not just useful, it is usable. So you can have tons of useful information, but only when you make that usable information, the productivity or importance of that data emerges in our day-to-day life. Similarly, how much ever data you collect it, unless you drive some business value out of it, and whether you collect terabytes or petabytes of data, or with even a simple kbs of data, so it all matters how much business value, how much change it is bringing to your environment or the enterprises. So that is the main essential for any application, any enterprise out in the market as well. And then part of the databases, we covered about different types of databases what we have. It's again not a simple topic, right? We covered few of the main databases which typically are used, and like tons of other different types of databases, but at a high level, in terms of methodology what it follows, we covered about these sql databases and NoSQL databases, and eventually a new flavor out of with the vector database as well, right? Which is kind of emerging in the usage market as well. So we discussed like what each of these database does, and SQL or NoSQL or the uh, latest databases like GraphQL or graph databases or time series based databases or vector databases. We kind of at a high level we kind of discuss what each of these database consists. But as the topic for us in terms of the goal, we are currently focusing on the SQL part, which is kind of basic foundation, right? Whether you want to learn any database, SQL is kind of one of the basic important foundation for it. So, and eventually when we talk about SQL, the first and foremost which comes up for us in learning or the experience wise as well is the Oracle SQL, right? So Oracle again, a market leader in terms of databases, which has more than 50 plus market share in terms of databases across the globe. Again, percentage might be kept on changing day to day. So it's more of an approximate percentage what I could at least have it in mind at the moment. And at a high level, we discussed about relational, the SQL databases. We discussed about time series, and we discussed about NoSQL based databases. Okay, and I'll pause in a minute here. In case any of these databases you are not, which are unclear for you, feel free to put down your question over the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself, and happy to clarify that in the meantime. Okay, I'll pause in a minute here and let me know any questions, any doubts. Okay, if no other question. And then we discussed about these components of database, right? What exactly database need? So when I say about database, collect the information, right? Second, you need some system where you're going to store the information, right? Some hard drive you might require, some system you might require. hardware is needed eventually, right? Any electronic device, be it small or big, eventually needs a hardware or system to do that activity. So that's one of the basic need of a digital world, right? Second is the software, which eventually runs your system. So it's the kind of brain of your system, right? So by having hardware makes you an asset, but having a software makes you the usable data or the digital asset once again. And again, both of these two might not work enough long time, but only when you collect the information, you store the information on these uh, systems. You can have an interactive mechanism to interact with the users and have build some workflows, build some rules along with the data what you are captured, what is possible, what is not possible, any validations you want to keep it whatsoever, right? You need to build some business logic on top of it, right? So we have all the procedures. Procedure just an hypothetical name here, but it can be workflow whatsoever depending on the tech stack or the application you are working on. We kind of discussed about the components of databases with it, and we uh, we kind of discussed about database management system, right? Now we know what are the components of my database. Now what would I require to have this system, right? A database management. Let's say if I have simple Microsoft Windows or an Linux environment or a Mac OS, the operating system, right? You have the hardware, you have some software which runs all this activity for you, right? Similarly, the database management system does all the activity what is required with your database. Like you want to handle the how the hardware is being used, or you want to understand how the data is being stored, how much consumption is being done, how much free space is being done, how it is maintaining the integrity of the data, how it can understand what user is providing, right? You need a language for it. The which we call it as data retrieval language at a very high level. Part of it we have like different flavors within that. Obviously, SQL is kind of very commonly used uh, access mechanism for this data. And then we have security. So having the model, having the storage, having some language to talk with that, or having the integrity, it's not as enough, right? With the new world, eventually has its own problems, and you need to keep your data secure. It has all these security compliances, security policies, access controls, and encryption mechanism sort of thing to make sure data at rest, where it is stored at some place which is at rest, it is secured, and data which is in transit, when you are sending the data from one system to other system in some or the other mean, right? Even that information need to be secured. So security needs to be considered and multiple layers, both data at rest and data in transit as well. And having all this again have its own pros and cons. It's a digital system. System can break out anytime. You don't know what would happen in the worst case scenario, and the worst case might happen today, might happen tomorrow. But we want the business to be prepared for it. So eventually, the backups come in picture for you with its own archival period, archival logic, and everything. For any of these systems, we work it out. Okay. So together, these components, right? Any database we use have these components in one or the other way of implementation. The methodology how they implement it might differ, but the concept remains the same in all the database management systems. And as we talk about different components, right? So what it consists is storage. space where it can store the information. It has the query language to access the information for it, so that system understands what you are trying to provide it. And you need to keep a monitor, right? What, how the system is working, what type of data is getting accessed, what is being done in terms of database. You need a track of it, you need a log of all those details, and you need to maintain the performance of the database, having the scalability of the application, and as well as adaptability in terms of change in your domain as well. So accordingly, you need to handle the performances and make sure those are tuned to the right wave of usage. And access controls, as I mentioned, it's the core security, and you want to make sure whoever is accessing the data access who is authorized user, and then access who is uh, legitimate person to access the specific information, right? So two layers. One, whenever you talk about access control, we talk about authentication, and then we talk about authorization as well. Authentication, we're just making sure the user is a valid user in the system to use it or not. But authorization is where the functional understanding of the user comes in picture in terms of data what you have it. So we need to take care of all the dimensions in terms of the access controls as well. So again, as I mentioned, these components might change in terms of methodology, how it works out, how what kind of data you can store it, what type of data you can pull it out might change. But eventually, the principle remains the same. And the database management system, again, it's simple, nothing but the software, right? So whatever we have discussed. And it should, this software needs to provide the functionality for both creating the data, reading the data, deleting the data, or updating the data as well, right? So you have database management system, which acts like a layer for you, access layer or a middleman for you. And you have users who connect to this database. It can be either in form of a user account, it can be either from a system to a system account sort of thing. So all these things should be taken care by the database management system. And eventually part of it, it's going to understand how it is storing the information, how it can reuse information or leverage information to provide the data what is being asked by the user. So yeah, I hope in terms of database management system, the concept is clear for you. Any question, any doubt, any confusion or clarification? I'll pause in a minute here. Feel free to discuss. Okay. Feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself to discuss, or you can use the chat window as well anytime you have any question. Okay. So I think there are no more questions. Probably we'll jump on to the next topic, right? When it comes to the Oracle database, we talked about database management system, and one of the software which we are going to use it going forward is the Oracle database, right? One of and again, it's a proprietary software, not an open source which is available for you. So it's completely custom built commercial application. It has a developer edition where developers can access it, learn it for some time. But if you want to use that thing for commercial purpose, eventually you need to pay the license costs for it. And these databases, in terms of as they are matured, kind of have multiple versions, right? One is the transaction database or transaction processing. We call it as OLTP database. And we have data warehouses, what we call as Oracle data warehousing solutions. And there are few which are having like mix and match. So I don't want a full space what a typical system requires, but small things, right? And the official uh, release of Oracle started back in 1979. Uh, we call that as the first official public release, which came in limelight was in version 2. Version 1, even though it was released, not that much of fame for it. But from version 2 onwards, a lot of new enhancements which are came in for it. And latest version which is available for you over the cloud is the Oracle 23 AI, which has some of these AI functionalities which kind of helps to
Hi,
automate
Karthik.
these operation related activities or DPA related activities for developer related activities, some of these activities. So which we typically like see in our day-to-day job. And we're going, once we come to the architecture and latest topics end of this session, and we are going to cover this as well in terms of differences between the current versions available and the latest version what is being available. That's on the Oracle database side. And again, when it comes to Oracle database, the first one of the key concept what we discuss is a relational database, right? So SQL based database. In simple, as a name suggests, it's a relational database. So data, whatever you are storing, has a relation with the data. Maybe within the same table, maybe a different tables, whatever we store it, it has a relation. It maintains that uh, um, uh, linkage between these tables, because these tables, we, even though we call it as table, it's it's an entity, it's a stakeholder in your application, right? So if I have some customers data, or if I have some products data, so my business is of zero value if this information is not stored properly, this information is not handled properly, right? So these entities, customers, products, or employees, whatsoever, these individual entities are, have some meaningful information, right? So we need to maintain that relationship across. Eventually, this maintenance of relationship having a soft dependency or an hard dependency, depending on type of dependencies you create, type of constraints you create, you might see different variations of it. So once we start with the hands-on activity, we would discuss both having the schema level dependency, and we are going to discuss with the triggers with soft dependencies as well. So we would discuss most about things, but this need to be maintained. That's when the data integrity, data consistency would be maintained clearly. Again, so as database management system is a software, so relation database again is going to be a software which kind of designed and worked for the structure of a relational database of it. And most of the databases have evolved, they kind of came into hybrid concept as well. It's not just going to be one format of the database, but it can handle multiple formats. It's more from the coexistence perspective, right? So we can't keep something loose and leave it. We want to enhance our system and get some more features and everything. So even though RDBMS typically started with SQL based, and it kind of evolved to handle documents, handle some JSON structures as well. But the baseline of the RDBMS, the concept of RDBMS in terms of maintaining the consistency, maintaining the integrity, are the same. Okay, I'll pause in a minute here. Let me know any questions, any doubts, any clarifications. Okay, if no other questions, probably we'll start with the next one. Okay, so what are the features of RDBMS, right? We talked about RDBMS, we talked about database at a high level, right? So one, the ACID support, the atomicity of the data in terms of what you create, what you update, what you read, all the information. need to maintain the asset properties where the atomicity of the data is maintained clearly, and whether you want to commit some information, whether you want to revert the information, you have the complete control of this data. And the multi-user access, one of the key concept what we discussed earlier, right? So it's not just about RDBMS, but any database. Okay, it should support multiple users in concurrency as well. So multiple users can access, modify the information at the same time. Again, it has own, depending on type of application you use, what type of data, it has some of the pros and cons, some dependencies. That's where different products come in picture as well. And next with data durability, and how much data I want to store, what type of data types I want to store it. System should be able to handle the new data types, whatever we are going to have it. Maybe something is not available. It should provide me flexibility to build something new of it. And the data consistency, right? So, which is one of the key concept for it. So, data consistency, wherever you access, what time you access doesn't really matter. The data what you see, it should be consistent. Maybe if I access my inventory details over a mobile phone, I get some details. And if I access some inventory over some of the desktop application, I get some different details. It should not happen like that. So the data needs to be consistent irrespective of where it is getting access to, and it should always provide the right information which is available in the database. And data flexibility, and you need the data flexible, right? It's not that without having flexibility it's of no use. Okay, you do have the flexibility to customize it, have the flexibility in terms of making some your own changes and play around of it, so you can do that as well. And again, RDBMS, as I mentioned, it has a relation between these tables, right? So as we create these tables, create these constraints and all the details, you will have more clarity in terms of how the relationship is maintained in these tables as well. Okay. Again, same topics, whatever we covered in the previous slide, as I'm kind of kept it like simple points so that you can see through the data, get some understanding in terms of the topics what we covered. Okay, I'll pause in a minute here. Feel free to read through the slide. Any questions, any doubts, not just this, the prior as well. Feel free to raise that. I'll clarify it. Okay. Okay. If no other questions, probably um, we discussed about RDBMS, and the next in terms of RDBMS, we kind of covered the word called tables, right? So we need information in a proper structured way. It has to be clean, it has to be neat, it has to be properly arranged. So obviously in that case, when you want something to be arranged properly in a table thing, obviously we end up having some tables, a metric sort of information, right? With the column headers or attribute names, etc., and the data to it, right? So these, what we call the information or entity, what is being driven here, we uh, call these as nothing but the tables. So we store the information in form of tables, which is the unique entity which holds in my organization or some of the other information in my enterprise. And the properties of this information, right? We call those as attributes or columns. So let's say if I have some product, maybe a mobile phone, maybe Samsung or Apple or any other device for it, right? You'll have a product for it, you have a price, you have category, what it belongs to, and you have the manufacturer, like where is the phone manufactured. So you're going to cover all those details. So these individual rows which are existing to itself. So let's say one product is not depending on other product, for example, right? So it can exist itself unless you have some uh, complex variations or dependencies and all, right? So this information, which is the what we call as records as well in our table, and in technical terms, we call this as tuples or rows. So the all the uh, verticals and horizontals, whatever information we have it here. So verticals, we keep it as attributes or columns, and horizontal, we keep it as rows and tuples. So whenever you want to add a new product, you can just add a new product out here. So we don't need to change any of column. We just need to provide details of that product. And it's simple as I mentioned, right? The tuple or the record. So all the columns, whatever we have in the table, can exist itself. So if I want to update some name of an employee, I can just give an update statement on the table and update some details. So this record, whatever you store it in your requirement, make sure it is unique and it is understandable data, and the information whatever you are storing makes sense in terms of business as well. And this again, rows, multiple tuples, whatever we cover it. And this table whatever we create, we also call that as schema, and that's the data model schema or white print in terms of what the table consists, what type of dependencies or constraints we have it at the table level, right? So similarly, the product name, for example, or price, category, manufacturer, we call them as the schema or attributes of table. And there would be one unique column or row in your table which kind of provides the uniqueness in the information, right? So we call them as a key, be it a unique key or a primary key or a non-unique key. We try to identify what type of key it is and how we can leverage it. Okay. And we kind of discussed about the data integrity, right? So why we need the data integrity and what type of data integrities are available. So when talk about data integrity, there are multiple different variations of it, right? So integrity needs to maintain at multiple levels, right? One, the entity level, which is nothing but the table level. Table should not allow duplicate rows, for example, right? So if I have a new employee in the organization who is having the same employee ID like mine, who is already available, it should not happen, right? The ID whatever you allocate to him should be unique and should identify his details for it, right? So similarly with the domain integrity, so domain integrity, where you're going to maintain the attributes or columns in your table and need to have certain data only. It should not have like free from of data sort of requirement. So if anything you have in this case, we call them as domain integrity. And we have referential integrity, where some of the data whatever we create in my table has a reference to its parent of it, right? So some sort of reference where the information is referred, the parent identity in a different table for it. So we call that as referential integration. And there are few user defined integrators as well, right? So I can use a combination of these two. I can have some custom variations as well in terms of integrating. So what we call the source table, we call it as the driving table, and the column which is unique to it, we call it as a primary key or a unique key. And the place where these details are referred to in terms of its own dependent market, we see those information in terms of referential integrity as foreign keys. Okay. And the other key concept what we cover with databases is the database normalization, right? So the first step in any database we do is the database modeling, right? So we need to understand the business requirement. We need to convert the business requirement into technical terms and in terms of the application whatever we use. So during this process, the key step whatever we do is what called as data modeling. We understand what data it is, how it needs to be stored, where it needs to be stored. All those details comes as part of it. And the key concept, right? So what we call as normalization, and the information whatever we are storing need to be stored in a proper streamlined and structured manner, right? So the main purpose of it, we to reduce the duplicate information. It's going to be very difficult to maintain having same information repeated in multiple variations in multiple places, right? So we need to depend reduce that redundancy of the data, and we need to reduce the data dependencies part of this model whatever we create. So that's a primary essential need of what we call as normalization. And again, in simple terms, normalization is nothing but creating your tables or structure and understanding the simplest form of how I can represent my data. And this representation can go with one and a form: first level normalization, second level, third level, fourth level, and fifth level, right? So different file levels. But 99% of the applications whatever we use kind of end up doing it at second or third level of normalization. It's very rare someone goes at fourth and fifth level normalization. It all depends on how uh, 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 what criticality of this data or importance of maintaining the uniqueness and reducing the dependencies and normalization or redundant information. So depending on that, people can extend to the fourth normal form and the fifth normal form as well. So and there are more BCNF which are available. BCNF is nothing but having the third level of normalization applied to the strictest possible. So it's not that there is no leniency to the other tables, but it's mostly strictly followed in terms of the third level normalization. And as we go through the use case and as we designed the tables on our day one, we would come back onto the normalization and we would discuss part of the use case when we are creating the data models. We would see how the 1F is being converted to 2F and 2F is being converted to 3F and so on. So we would do that during our hands-on activity on the day one on this. Okay, but keep these points, whatever I covered, uh, the differences between the 1NF and 2NF and between 2NF to 3NF sort of thing. So this is very much needed for you to have some more clarity. Okay, I'll pause in a minute here. Let me know any questions, any doubts, any clarifications whatsoever. So, and next topics of SQL and the format of SQL, other details and all, we would cover it in tomorrow's session. And today's we'll cover it more from the databases and RDBMS, the essential of it and everything. And uh, the third one, we will create some of those. We'll see how to connect to the instance, create some of those objects, what are different type of objects and the details, some introduction to SQL, how, what is SQL and all. We'll do it in tomorrow's demo session. Okay. Any questions, any doubts, any clarifications? Feel free to discuss and happy to clarify that. I'll pause in the minute. Let me know any questions, any clarifications or doubts. Okay, I see someone raise the hand. Suraj. Yeah, Suraj, feel free to unmute or raise your question, please.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Suraj.
Hi, hi. As I can see, chat is disabled for me.
Oh,
So I just want to ask, like,
mhm.
whether in this course, like, we will be focusing on more on development part, or because I am currently working as a tester. So just want to know, like, whether.
This is more from the development aspect, Suraj, and we would cover all the topics, whatever I mentioned it, right? So, are from the development aspect of it, so that once this is done, or along with it, each day, the topic, whatever we're going to cover, we are going to do hands-on, be it the SQL creation or the PLSQL creation, and the topics of it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and
Thank you.
again,
Yeah.
some details we would part of development whatever we do, right? I'll
Mhm.
try to cover from the negative aspects of it, probably because you have the QA exposure of it. You might know those negative testings and negative scenarios already. So how the developers can add those scenarios as part of validations and all. We would may not be for all the topics, but I'll try to add in whenever we do this programming, right? So that way developers who are creating it can understand that clearly.
Yeah, I can understand the development perspective from the QA perspective.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? Any doubts? Clarifications? Okay. Okay. I see Rohit. Rohit, you raised your hand.
Hi, Venkat. Just had a question. So I know that you will be covering the development part.
Mhm.
Would you also be covering the query itself, creating the queries
Yes,
and the
we do
structures?
cover
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
So we will create from the basic simple queries, and we will create with little complex queries as well. I'm not going to go too complex queries because it might be difficult for others to join, but the concepts whatever we are going to cover will help you to write any complex query. So all you need to get the visualization of how the data needs to be developed in each steps, and you will be able to do that. And building that visualization, I'll try to help as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions, any topics, or anything you feel you're falling short of your decisions or having some confusion? Feel free. I'll will use the next 5 minutes or so to get some clarity on it. Okay. Okay. If no other questions, probably we'll wrap this session for today here, the demo session. And tomorrow's demo session, we will continue with the SQL topics. And part of SQL, I'm going to cover and how to create the tables, the whatever concept we learned for tuples, everything, right? Rows and all we would cover like how to create the SQL, what type of variations we have within the SQLs, and the importance of each of these commands, whatever we use it, and how to write it, other details. I'll try to explain that with simple example so that you will have a bit more clarity in terms of SQL. Again, This more of introduction session. I'm not going to cover the all the complex topics part of it, but just to give a gist of what we do. And from the next session onwards, I'm going to cover the steps for connecting to the instance everything. And once you understand the topics, get some development hands-on, understand how the queries are working, how the logics are being done, and then I'll explain the database architecture for you uh, in like every week. I'll try to cover some concepts, and end of the session for you, I will have more clarity on the database architectures as well. So that's the plan and the curriculum what we are going to cover for it. Okay, I'll pause in a minute here once again. Any questions, any doubts, any confusion, any dilemma, feel free to raise your hand, we'll discuss. Okay, I have one. I see from Mohammed.
Uh, Hello, good evening.
Hey,
Actually,
hi Mohammed.
I'm not from IT background, so like I'll be doing this SQL and later on I'll move to DBA.
Mm.
So what will be my focus and like all the topics will be covered in this SQL and then uh, for the next scenario.
Yes, yes, Mohammed. This course is more from the developer perspective, not as a DPA, but the concepts, whatever you're going to learn, be it as a DPA as well, you are going to use, interact with these APIs, be it functions, procedures of function, some of
Yes.
the inbuilt or out of box which are available for you from Oracle, part of the day-to-day work. And eventually you would create these queries for your work as well, creating some monitoring tools, some report sort of thing you want to automate. You can leverage this activity part of your job. And the DBA concepts we would cover in one of the day, but I'm not going to go in detail about the all DBA concept, but some concepts which a developer need to understand. Let's say from the table space management perspective, right? What is table space? What are the files? A lot, how I'm going to map the physical files to the logical table space, how to understand the data consumption of table space, and how to understand uh, when I create some certain data types in my table, how to understand data, the way the data is being consumed, each of the column level as well, right? So, and
Yes.
how to gather these indexes, how to gather the explain plan from the development perspective, how to fine tune the plan, understand it, fine tune it. More from the developer side, I'll try to cover it, but in detail, like starting up the servers, shutting down the servers, or managing the processes or threads. I'm not going to go in detail onto that server details, but more from the developer side, I'll try to cover it.
You have any alternate course for that connecting to server and all those?
I don't see that available in the upcoming batches, Mohammed, but this
Okay.
question was raised in the yesterday's demo session as well, and
Yes.
I will discuss with the Logic Labs team and try to have some session for DPS as well, because it's a different side of the fence, right? So not all people might choose it, but I will bring this to the Logic Labs and we'll try to set up one for it.
Sure, sure. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, Suraj, I see your hand raised. You have any question?
Yeah, yeah. I'm having
Yes.
another question.
Sure, please.
So, as I can see the course curriculum, so are we focusing mainly on the like the PL sequels, just to understand from my like the QA point of view, like
Hmm.
uh,
I would cover on the PL sequels as well, and we would cover like how to create the PL sequels, how to manage the PLSQLs, and I'm going to cover how to invoke these PLSQLs as well as part of it.
Okay.
Okay, so I think part of the invocation and all, maybe some topics you might feel it useful for you from the QA side, but to understand like how you can write your test cases, right? So you once you go through this content, you'll be able to read through the code, understand what is happening. So eventually that will help you out to write better use cases as well.
Sure. And querying multiple tables, like the
Yes.
joint part will be the extended part of session, right? Like,
No, this is joins are covered part of this session.
okay.
Okay, with inner joins, left joins, or right joins, outer join, full outer joins, and with subqueries with both in the select clauses, in the from clause, or within the where clause, and having the different variations using in conditions, not in conditions, exist and not exist sort of thing, different variations using these queries of multiple tables are part of this SQL content.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? Any doubts? Any clarifications? Okay. I think we are right on time here today. If no other questions or doubts, we will wrap up this session here, and we will connect tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m. IST, and we would discuss more details on the SQL part of it, and we would discuss the next steps going forward, right? I'll show you some of the links where we can get the instances, prerequisite requirements and all, so that based on your decision on the complete course, I'll share those details, how to install, how to connect and everything. Okay, thanks a lot guys, we'll connect in tomorrow's session once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. Have a nice day.